Good. All right. So, I've heard a lot of interesting stories here and throughout my vast 22 years of experience, but the most interesting ones all have a single common theme: alcohol. And I've heard a lot of different stories from a lot of different people and a lot of different friends. Like I had one friend who was a classmate of mine in undergrad who told me where he used to hide all of his beer in his dorm room at the Baptist university we went to, Southern Baptist. And I had the same friend actually had to explain to me that one day after him and a few buddies drank all of this hidden beer, they all proceeded to puke all over the same dorm room. So that was a good story. And I even had one friend who I had to have him explain to me why at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when we met for lunch, he had glitter on his face. And now that was a double threat. That one had to deal with alcohol and a girl, so it's a little different. So I'm not here just to talk about drinking stories today. This probably isn't the right place nor the right time. But I bring it up because I want to talk about Jesus. Because in the Gospel of John, the story of Jesus really begins with a drinking story. It goes like this. There was a guy named John the Baptist, and he's going around spreading a lot of hype about Jesus. And his reputation becomes so prominent within a few circles that a few men actually start following him and living with him to learn from him. And after they've been doing this for a few days, Jesus goes to a wedding where there's alcohol. And at this reception, he's there with his disciples and with his mom. So you know that it was just a great party when the mom's there. But about halfway through the reception, everything's going well. They're celebrating this beautiful young couple. And Jesus' mom comes up to him with a sad face and an empty cup. And she says, "Jesus, they're out of wine." And she wants him to do something about it. But he's a little hesitant at first, but he ends up telling the servants, "Bring in water." And they do. They bring in these big containers of water that are so large and so heavy that two of them kind of have to do this penguin waddle thing to get it in. And the water is sloshing back and forth, spilling over the sides, leaving a trail on the ground. But they get it in there, and it's about 150 gallons worth of water. Naturally, Jesus turns it all to wine. And not just wine, not box of wine from Walmart, not stuff you get at Applebee's for $12 a bottle. But no, this was fine wine, the best, the good stuff. So obviously with 150 gallons of fine wine, the party goes on happily. And the author of John ends the story like this. This, the first of his miraculous signs, Jesus performed at Cana in Galilee. He thus revealed his glory, and his disciples put their faith in him. This story leaves us with more questions than it does answers. What did the wine taste like? Why did Jesus' mom expect him to fix the situation? And why did Jesus decide that this was the time to reveal his glory? But most of all, it leads us with one important question. Who is this Jesus? The answer only gets blurrier as we continue. See, because on another day, Jesus is going to the temple. And as he's going up the steps and he's getting ready to go into the temple courts, the smell of butchered meat comes to him. And he can hear the sound of haggling and of goats making goat noises. And as he gets up into the temple courts where he expects to find a place of worship, he instead finds a marketplace selling animals both alive and in pieces, selling trinkets, selling pottery, selling all sorts of things. Now, what does he do with this problem? Does he go to the local Jewish authorities and file an official complaint? Nope. Does he think of 95 ways to reform the court and nail it up on the door? No, he doesn't do that. He goes furiously from booth to booth, stand to stand, table to table, and turns them end over end. Pottery is flying and crashing. Farming equipment is clanking and falling. Goats are running around making even louder goat noises. But Jesus isn't done. No, he picks up a whip and starts driving the people out of the temple courts. It's insanity. People are running and screaming. Goats are running all around. There's broken things all over the floor. And as these many people are scurrying and sprinting from the court, they're wondering, who is this Jesus? And there's another day when a man comes to Jesus frantically, desperately wanting to speak to him. This man turns out to be a royal official who has a son who is deathly sick. And he wants Jesus to heal his son. Now, but Jesus knows this man has no real faith. He's just heard that Jesus can do some cool things and wants to see if he can help. But the man begs and he begs, and his knees press his expensive tunic into the packed dirt. And Jesus has compassion. And even though his son is a 2 or 3 day ride away, he heals him without needing to see him, without needing to touch him. And he sends the man on his way. And as the man is on his way home, when he's about halfway there, his servants actually meet him because they are excited to tell him the good news that his son is alive and well. And with a long trip still ahead, the man wonders, who is this Jesus? And there's one more story where the disciples, who actually don't have Jesus with them at this moment, are crossing a lake in a boat at night. And the weather's not good. The wind is howling, the black waters are choppy, and the pale reflection of the moon is bouncing off the waves as they crash. And they're a few miles out into the lake when one of the disciples, probably Peter, shouts, "Look!" And everyone turns a little too quickly for the size of the boat, and it starts rocking back and forth, and no one can really see. But when the boat settles down, what they do see is a dark figure of a man walking to them on the black waters, which is creepy. Very creepy, very scary. And the disciples are freaking out. They are terrified until they hear a familiar voice say, "It's me, don't be scared." It's Jesus. And he meets them on the boat. He goes to the front of it to hang out with a few and talk about what they're doing the next day. But there's one disciple who's lingering towards the back, and he's thinking. He knows that he's following someone important, but walking on water is not what he expected. He wonders, who is this Jesus? I could tell you a lot more stories like this. I could tell you about the time that Jesus took the amount of food that you could fit in your hands and multiplied it to feed 5,000 people. I could also tell you about the time when Jesus referred to himself as bread. I could tell you about the time that Jesus talks to a Pharisee and tells him the only way to be saved is to go through birth a second time. I can also tell you about the time when Jesus was arrested, when his followers abandoned him, when he was beaten and bloodied, when he was executed in public, when his body was put into a tomb, when his movement died, and everyone who ever knew him, they had one question on their lips. Who was this Jesus? There's been a lot of answers proposed to this question then and now. Some say that Jesus was a good teacher. He was a radical rabbi, a naive revolutionary. He was crazy. He was a myth, a legend, a lie, an opiate for the masses. And if this is where the story ends, those answers might be true. If this is where the story stops, then whenever anyone asks the question, who is this Jesus, the answer doesn't really matter. And if this is where the story reaches its conclusion, then it concludes as just a story. But this isn't where the story ends. The story's not over. See, after Jesus died, for 3 days the world was dark, it was confusing, and it was sad. But on the third day, on the morning of that third day, something happened. On the third day, the tomb was empty. On the third day, the bandages were lying on the ground. And on the third day, the question was answered. Who is this Jesus? He is the risen Lord. He is the King of Kings. He is the Messiah, the Son of God. He is the Almighty. He is love. He is life. He is peace. He is salvation. He is everything. Now, this can be a lot to take in. It would be easy to get lost in the long list of accolades and attributes and titles and just sit back and say, oh, this guy sounds pretty cool. I'm glad he's here to help me. Happy day. But the last thing I said, Jesus is everything. Everything is not a biblical term. It's not a complicated term. It is not a term filled with theological or symbolic meaning. It is a simple word, perhaps even too simple to describe the Savior, Jesus Christ. But if you look back at that long list again, that Jesus is King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Messiah, Son of God, seems to me to be about pretty much everything, or at least everything that matters. You know what else the word everything makes me think of? Golden Corral buffet. Big buffet. They have everything. And it's fantastic because it's just, you go and you see the long row of heat lamps shining down upon the golden glowing treasures, and you have the warm plate clutched between your two hands, and as you walk back and forth, you look upon and smell the smorgasbord of opportunity just calling your name. Chinese, barbecue, seafood, sushi, steak, desserts of all kind, a chocolate fountain. Oh, and they have salad. I haven't been to that section. I've heard they have it. But they have all these wonderful things. And the best part is you can go and pick exactly what you want. Pick up the barbecue, leave the collard greens. I'm not Southern, I'm sorry. Pick up the shrimp, leave the salad. Pick up the steak, pick up more steak, pick up more steak. And that's what makes buffets great. But the problem is we do that with Jesus. We say, yes, Jesus is everything. But then we take our Bibles and we run through it with our fingers looking for the collection of red words that's going to tell us exactly what we want to hear. Pick up his forgiveness, leave his righteousness. Pick up his acceptance, leave his holiness. Pick up his hope, leave his authority. And in the end, you don't have Jesus. You have an idea with no power. Jesus is everything, or he is nothing. If Jesus is not everything to you, then he is nothing to you. And we see this when we look at the disciples. The people who truly believed in Jesus followed him. It wasn't easy. They constantly sacrificed. They made mistakes. They were completely confused, but they still followed. They followed Jesus to where he was leading them. And it was there that they found life. It was there that they found peace. It was there that they found hope. And it was there that they were transformed. Sure, they slipped up along the way more than once. But Jesus was everything to them. And in the end, he gave them everything that they would ever need. If you really believe in Jesus, follow him. It won't be easy. You will have to sacrifice constantly. You're going to get a lot of things wrong. You will be completely confused, but keep following. Follow Jesus to where he is wanting you to go, because it is there and only there that you will find hope and life and peace. It is there and only there that you will be transformed. Sure, you're going to slip up a couple times along the way. But if Jesus is everything to you, then in the end, he will give you everything you will ever need. Who is this Jesus? A lot of people say a lot of different things. But to those who follow him, Jesus is everything. Thank you.